Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Ooh, elsewhere in that regional, the Alabama Crimson Tide, their first appearance since 2014, went 3-6-1 in SEC series, yet they find their way in, and they will face NC State.
What was that ooh all about? I mean, yeah, they found their way in. Maybe they have the second toughest schedule and an RPI in the low 30s. Maybe that's why they found themselves in there, pal. Good evening and welcome into Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. For the first time since 2014, Alabama baseball is in an NCAA regional tournament, although not everybody is excited about it. More on that in a moment. The Crimson Tide was selected to the Ruston Regional on the campus of Louisiana Tech University. The Crimson Tide is the number 3 seed and joins number 2 seed NC State and number 4 seed Rider, along with the top seeded host Louisiana Tech. The opening round is Friday. Alabama will play North Carolina State on Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time. If the Tide can win that one, look out. Alabama will be making its 25th all-time appearance in the NCAA tournament. The last time Alabama advanced to a super was at Clemson back in 2010. They won the first game there under Mitch Gaspard. Looked like they might make it to the World Series, lost the last two. The last time they reached the College World Series, way too long, out in Omaha, 1999. The last time Bama went to the CWS.
It just shows progress. And, I think over time we don't want to maybe celebrate limping into a regional or just getting there by the skin of our teeth. But considering where we've been and where we've come from, it's a huge deal.
It is a huge deal, and I understand what he's saying. You'd rather know that you're in. Maybe you were the last team in, but I'm telling you what, in terms of perception and reality, it is huge for Alabama. I said before the season, I thought that the NCAA regional should be the expectation for this team. There was a bumpy ride, Rodney, but they did enough to get there. And again, nothing against Louisiana Tech. They got a really good program. NC State's a good team. Rider, they're all capable. But I think this is a regional that Alabama has an opportunity, possibly, to make a run in and have a chance to win.
And that would be a real step.
Now that would be a huge step.
Yeah, really. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, Gary, the importance of taking that next step. And I think certainly this is. And hopefully if they can get through this regional, get into a super regional, then all of a sudden the whole perspective or the whole image of your program changes.
A lot of people, as we said, are excited for Alabama to be in, but there are some, there are detractors. Some of the analysts felt like Pitt should have got in out of the ACC ahead of Alabama, maybe even Georgia from the SEC. The SEC got 9 teams. The ACC got 8. Alabama finished 31-24, wound up winning 14 games in the SEC counting the tournament, and those 2 wins in the tournament over South Carolina and Tennessee were big. I'm going to say this. I thought Alabama deserved to get in it. I'm not sure that the Tide would. Had they not made it, I would have lived with it. Said, hey, they just didn't make it. But the fact that they got in, I certainly don't have a problem with that when you have the nation's second toughest schedule. You're in the toughest conference. Everybody knows that. And you got an RPI in the early 30s. The bottom line is the committee thought that they did enough. And I don't have any problem with Alabama being in this region.
They've got the credentials.
Yeah.
Again, you're always going to have fringe teams, Gary, and there's going to be disappointment and teams that think they should have been in over another team. But again, Alabama had the credentials. They play in the SEC. You mentioned the difficulty of that, and I think that's something that's a real consideration. And also, I'll tell you this, my understanding of Pitt's schedule, when you talk about bottom 50 teams, they had a losing record against bottom 50 teams, whereas Alabama had a winning record. So, I think that's something that you have to look at. When you're talking about playing against lesser opponents, teams less successful, Pitt struggled.
Yeah, now go on and make some noise. If Alabama were to win that regional, they would be matched up with the winner of the Fayetteville-Arkansas regional. More than likely, that would be Arkansas, and the winner of that Ruston regional will be taking a trip to Fayetteville. But you'd love to have the opportunity. Remember, Alabama beat Arkansas, the first SEC game of the season, 16-1 up in Fayetteville. Well, Alabama softball, nothing new here. Set for its 13th appearance in 25 seasons at the Women's College World Series in OKC. Tide pitchers Montana Fouts and Lexi Kilfoyle were dominant against Kentucky in the Super Regional. The Tide swept those 2 games. Fouts and Kilfoyle each throwing a complete game. And infielder Maddie Morgan came up clutch at the plate with a 2-run home run in Saturday's win that clinched a spot in the Women's College World Series field. It's Morgan's first home run of the season. Pretty good time to get your first. And now it's time for Coach Talk. Tide head coach Patrick Murphy knows what it takes to win out in OKC. Alabama won the national championship in 2012. And Murph says this Tide team, Alabama team number 25 in 2021, is a legitimate contender for a championship too.
We want to win it, you know. I think this group really feels like they can. Obviously, we're on an 18-game winning streak. I think the day after the last game of the Florida series, I wrote on the practice plan, run the table. And I never thought they would, because 16 of the 18 games were against ranked teams, and by God, they did.
And this was the scene outside the Rhodes House earlier today as the Tide got on the bus for the trip over to the airport and then the flight to OKC. They're now there safely. Alabama will play Arizona, the mighty Arizona Wildcats, Thursday evening at 6 o'clock Central Time. Rod, let's talk about this for a moment. This Alabama team had high expectations. You got Montana Fouts. You got Lexi Kilfoyle. You got basically your whole roster back. But then they got into the season. Injuries hit hard. I mean, hit really hard. And even though they've only lost 7 games, it seemed like there was a little run there where they lost 3 or 4 out of like 7 or 8. But they plugged players in. Those players got comfortable. They hit their stride at the right time. Montana Fouts is an absolute ace, and Kilfoyle's back. They've won 18 in a row, like Murph said. Yeah, this team can win it all. Now, you got to go do it. But I think they're good enough to beat UCLA, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Arizona, anybody.
And I'll tell you what I think he's talking about too, Gary. You're right. Montana Fouts dominant. And you have a pitching like Alabama has, you have a chance. But also, I think you're talking about all the things that they overcame during the season. Those are the type of things when you have teams that pull together and overcome these types of obstacles. They develop chemistry.
Absolutely.
And that is a championship quality.
Yeah, 18 wins. They're on a roll at the toughest point in the season. Most of these wins coming in the postseason. That's incredible. Well, still to come on TITV, there's been some changes to Alabama football roster for 2021. We'll have an update. And recruits are officially cleared for on-campus visits as of today. Who are some of the visitors on their way to Tuscaloosa this month, and what can fans expect on the recruiting trail? We'll take a closer look next. And also, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Go ahead and call in now, or you can email us or tweet at us. This is Tider Insider TV, and we'll be right back after this. And welcome back to TITV alongside Rodney Orr. You can hear battling a little bit of a head cold, but still toughing it out and getting on in here. We appreciate it. I'm Gary Harris. Well, Rodney, finally, Alabama football, all the schools can officially host recruits and prospects on campus. And the Crimson Tide isn't wasting any time getting these players in here for visits. Alabama will host many of the top prospects in the classes of 2022 and 2023 in the next 2 weeks. And just some of the names that will be here, according to Rodney at Tider Insider, locally. Of course, 2023 Hillcrest quarterback Ethan Crawford, who is an outstanding prospect. Gardendale defensive end Kelby Collins. Montgomery Catholic linebacker T.J. Dudley, he's 2022. Traquan Fagans from over in Oxford. These are in-state guys. Hewitt-Trussville defensive end Justice Finkley. Geneva County running back Emmanuel Henderson, who committed to Alabama. And there are many, many more, Rod. And now, again, Alabama's not the Lone Ranger here. A lot of schools are hosting a lot of recruits. I think Georgia's had like 50 in already today. But it is going to be a busy month, and Alabama's at the top of just about every player that has a list out there. Alabama's on it.
Yeah, you're going to have some of the top players in the country, Gary. Matter of fact, I think out of the group already scheduled to visit in the month of June alone, 18 5-stars. Now, that's including some 2023 players, but that's a pretty high number. But Curtis Perry's a player here from Montgomery, a tremendous defensive line prospect that's here today. Carson Hinsman, one of the top offensive linemen in the country out of Wisconsin. He made the trip down. He's here today. Barrian Brown is a fantastic wide receiver from Nashville Pearl Cone. He'll be here in a few days. B.J. Allen, a top safety prospect committed to Texas. He's coming in on the 5th. Denver Harris, another 5-star DB out of the state of Texas. Damani Jackson, 5-star defensive back, committed to USC. He'll be in town. Zach Rice, maybe the #1 offensive tackle in the country, Gary, out of Lynchburg, Virginia. on and on and on. So you get the drift. It's going to be a really busy month with a lot of high-quality prospects.
Yeah,
in Tuscaloosa.
evaluations, camps, visits, and don't forget, folks, obviously these players are anxious to get on these campuses and check them out, but also the Tide coaching staff is anxious to see these guys in person. Basically, for the most part, they signed the 2021 class sight unseen to some degree, Rod.
Yep.
So this is a chance to kind of get it back to normal.
Yeah, again, you get in front of them, Gary, you have an opportunity to see them, better evaluations. A lot of these guys going through camps, some of them will participate in the camps, gives you a great opportunity. There's Ty Simpson right there, at five-star quarterback committed to Alabama. He's going to be here several times this month. Matter of fact, he may be here today, but just about every weekend he'll be here helping Alabama recruit.
Well, you know, you're trying to get players to come into your program, and Rod, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, depending on your perspective, the transfer portal means sometimes that you get players from other programs and sometimes you lose them. Matt Zenitz from AL.com has kind of become the master of the transfer portal breaking news. Just a short time ago, he reported that Keelan Robinson, outstanding Alabama running back / wide receiver, very, very talented, very, very fast. I thought he'd have a huge role in this team. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to leave, but he is reportedly, according to Zenitz, entered his name in the transfer portal.
Yeah, already schools, Gary, coming after him hard.
That'll be one to watch for sure. And redshirt junior linebacker Jerez Parks is not currently listed on Alabama's updated online roster at RollTide.com. Now, outstanding athlete, number 23. Looks the part, but played in just 6 games the past 2 seasons as an edge rusher. Listen, he's probably going to go somewhere and make somebody a football player. Again, this is Alabama. There are guys sitting on the bench at Alabama that are good enough to start other places. And out of the state of Florida, was a top 100 overall prospect in the 2018 recruiting cycle. Rodney just kind of never seemed to find a spot here at Alabama.
Well, you know what? And he, good kid, a quality student, no question about that, Gary. You mentioned he was a top 100 player coming out of Sebastian River, Florida. But listen, this outside linebacker group, like most positions here, loaded, stacked, a lot of competition. So it's not really an embarrassment that you don't crack the lineup. It's just a lot of competition. And you mentioned, if he goes somewhere else, continues on, he's got a chance to be a really good player.
Yeah, good luck to Jerez. All right, Alabama rowing wrapped up its first ever appearance in the NCAA championships, and the Tide didn't do too badly. They finished 13th overall with a total of 55 points. Really a big step for the program. All 3 Alabama boats, first varsity 8, second varsity 8, and the varsity 4 competed in finals. The first varsity was 5th in its heat and finished 11th in the petite final. And last week in Jacksonville, the Alabama women's track and field team qualified 11 to next month's NCAA championship finals, and men's track qualified 13. Check out the Tide's Tamara Clark. She finished the 200-meter race in 22.13 seconds. The time is the 4th fastest in collegiate history in 200 meters. Clark also helped the Tide women's 4x400-meter relay team earn a spot in the national finals. The NCAA championship finals is next month, June 9th through the 12th, out in Eugene, Oregon, which is the hub for all track and field. It seems like Alabama's got a really good chance to do well. Well, coming up on Tider Insider Television, Alabama basketball is set to get a first-hand look at college basketball's best. We'll explain. And next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, go ahead and give us a call at 205-348-9882. We'd love to hear from you. We'll get to some emails as well. And if you tweet at us, use that hashtag TITV so Stu can find it out there on Twitter. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. Bama basketball fans, you want some big-time hoops? You got it. According to CBS college basketball insider John Rothstein, national runner-up Gonzaga is set to host the Alabama Crimson Tide this season in Seattle, the Battle of Seattle, with Alabama then hosting the Zags in a return game the next season in Birmingham. The battle in Seattle will see a completely retooled Crimson Tide team face the Zags and the prohibitive favorite for preseason National Player of the Year, Drew Timme. That's going to be fun, and that's what Nate Oates has brought. Not only has he brought really good basketball, he's brought an opportunity to get in these kind of games. Because if you're Alabama, you see the value in playing Gonzaga, but now Gonzaga sees value in playing Alabama.
That's right. Coming back here, hey, listen, I think that's great schedule.
It's awesome. All right, we got phone calls and emails. Let's jump out on the Tider Insider hotline. And first up tonight is our pal Sammy up in Walker County. Sammy, them tomatoes on the vines, pretty good now, bud.
Hello, Gary and Rodney, and Rodney, sure hope you get feeling better and everything there, buddy.
Appreciate it, Sammy.
Yeah, Gary, I got them kicking, buddy. They're kicking. I'll get this rain in the next couple of days. Going to push them to the top. I'll try to get you some pictures. They're awesome, man.
All right, bro.
They're awesome. But the question I got, guys, and the transfer portal, do you think Alabama will back off the junior college players and just kind of see what we can do with the transfer portal, or what's y'all's opinion on that, or how they'll recruit in the future on that? Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Sammy. Yeah, you bet. Well, Alabama's never been a heavy JUCO recruiting team under Nick Saban. They don't have to be. They've cherry-picked a little bit. Listen, if there's a guy out there at junior college that they think is good enough to play here, they'll still recruit him. And they're going to be very selective with what they do in the portal, too. You've heard Nick Saban say, we don't expect our best players to leave, but we do expect some other teams' best players to want to come here. So I think for Alabama, they're going to continue to approach it primarily high school recruits first, and then maybe a player or two out of the portal, and then still look at the junior colleges.
I think that'll be the formula. Again, Sammy, I think if he's a great player, doesn't really matter where he is. If they have an opportunity, I think he can be better the team, then I think they'll recruit him. Junior college, portal, whatever it might be. So, again, I just think it comes down to getting the best players.
Thank you, Sammy, for the phone call. Let's get to an email. Phone lines are open, by the way, at 205-348-WVUA. What do you think of the selection showed failed to mention Bama's game more on, or, basically this is about some of the announcers not being real happy that Alabama got in the tournament over Pitt, and maybe he thinks that's unprofessional. I will tell you this. I was a little surprised by some of the analysts, not saying that they didn't think Alabama deserved to get in, but how adamantly, and a couple people even on some of the baseball sites on the internet just almost seemed offended that Alabama got in. Listen, Alabama was right on the bubble. I see a case for Pitt. I see a case for Georgia. I understand it's tight, but I do kind of agree that I thought some of the analysts went a little too far in trying to put a negative light on Alabama getting in, when clearly Alabama, had some quality wins.
Yeah, I didn't see that, so it's hard to comment, but I will say this, Gary. Again, we talked about it earlier. I think what Alabama did during the season, we said they needed to probably win, at least 2 games in the SEC tournament. They did that. And again, beat Tennessee, who was in the championship game against Arkansas. So I just think overall, Alabama certainly deserved. Yes, they were a bubble team, but somebody's going to get left out, and just so happened Alabama got in, fortunately.
Yeah, fortunately for Alabama fans. It is what it is. Not everybody's always happy with these tournaments, even with 64 teams. All right, coming up on TITV, former tennis star Alexa Geraci has the perfect tune-up before this week's French Open. Find out more on that coming up. And more phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, phone lines are open right now. That's rare. 205-348-9882. You can call and be a part of the show when we return to TITV right here inside our WVUA 23 digital media studios in Bryant-Denny Stadium. We're back after this. Alexa Geraci has won her 5th WTA title as the former Crimson Tide tennis star, and her doubles partner Desiree Krajcik captured the doubles championship at the Strasbourg tournament in France. Geraci and Krajcik win the Strasbourg final in straight sets. It's considered the tune-up for the French Open, which started this week. Geraci and Krajcik are the 5th-seeded women's double team at Roland Garros, so go get them, Alexa. All right, welcome back into the program. It's time to get back out on the Tider Insider TV hotline and welcome in JR over in Coker. Hey, JR, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man. Gary, how you doing?
Doing well.
I believe you and I have discussed this a couple times, so I kind of want to get Rodney's take on this, if it's okay. But, the transfer portal and how it benefits who the most, and I've always leaned towards, I thought that Alabama gets the most beneficiary, decision on that. But I kind of think that, what I'm seeing is that is happening, and it also opens the door for more scholarship openings for Alabama. And who is Alabama really directing that attention to? Who do they need the most?
All right, JR, Rodney, I'll let you get it. But right off the bat, for Alabama, as we said, they're going to be very selective in terms of who they go after in the portal. It's going to be the creme de la creme. We've seen it with Jamison Williams. We've seen it with Henry To'oTo'o. But how do you think, again, JR, to get JR's question, Alabama's approach on this portal?
Well, first of all, I think, talking about it opening up more scholarships, I think Alabama's one of those teams right now, Gary, that probably needs a few guys to move on because they're over the number. And again, it's going to fluctuate every year. It just depends on your numbers. This year, I think you probably want a few more guys, or there probably will be a few more guys that will hit the portal. Not that you want them to, but I just think the numbers are going to dictate that. But listen, I think if Nick Saban can find a player that you can plug in. And you take Jamison Williams, for example. Here's a guy, Alabama loses all this speed at wide receiver. He's experienced. He's played on the highest level. He's had success at Ohio State, been in the playoffs, made some big plays in those games. He has a 500-meter sprinter. He's a guy you add to that wide receiver core, he instantly brings speed and experience. I think Henry To'oTo'o, linebacker from Tennessee, one of the premier inside linebackers in college football. You know, to be able to get a guy like that, even though obviously you've got Christian Harris, you've got Jalen Moody, who I think is doing a fantastic job, a lot of young players. But if you can add a Henry To'oTo'o, this guy's going to bring not only a knowledge and experience, but I think he's a guy that very quickly can become a leader, believe it or not.
All right.
So I really think that, you know, if you can add those kind of players, Gary, you certainly want to be able to do that.
All right, JR, thanks for the phone call. Real quickly, let's go over to Fultondale and get Jimmy in. Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, the lineman from Washington, has he made up his mind yet?
JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah,
No.
JT Tuimoloau. He's going to take several visits in the month of June. He's going to Washington. He's going to USC. He's going to Ohio State. He's going to Oregon. And he'll finish up the month of June here at Alabama. And again, he's a 2021 player, did not sign in December or February. So he's a 5-star defensive lineman. Think about adding another 5-star player to that record-setting class, Gary.
Still could happen. All right, thanks for all the phone calls and emails. Tider Insider TV is going to roll on Tuscaloosa right after this. Now, you want a classy move by former Bama golfer Justin Thomas. The JT's one of the best in the world. Everybody's heard, a lot of people have heard about Michael Visicki, his dream, the big guy there with the beard. Mini tour player for many, many years, qualified for a tour event. JT gave him a check for an undisclosed amount just to help him finance his hopes to get on the PGA Tour. That is pretty cool, man, and it's the kind of guy JT is. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. Don't forget, if you missed any of the program or if you want to see it again tonight, you can catch it at 10:30, a replay on WVOA23 following the news at 10, or find it anytime online at WVOA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.